So chapter 1 is about the history of cosmetology and career opportunities. By the end of this chapter, you'll be able to describe the origins of personal beautification, name the advancements made in cosmetology during the 20th and early 21st centuries, list the career opportunities available to a licensed cosmetologist. So cosmetology, the definition of cosmetology is the art of beautifying and improving the skin, nails, and hair. And there's a broad range of specialty areas. Cosmetology is one of the oldest professions in history. It goes back as early as the Ice Age, so over 10,000 years ago. Pigments used during the Ice Age, they used roots and berries, tree bark and leaves, herbs and nuts, minerals and insects. So why do you think that it's important for you all to learn the history of cosmetology? A lot of times history repeats itself as far as like different styles and stuff goes. And there's a lot of the same stuff that they used back then that we still use today, or we use derivatives of. So what do you all think are some of the qualities and skills that are required of a cosmetologist? What you've seen in here and your own visits to a salon. Communication. You need to have like a basic understanding of like your practical skills, right? Mia, you're really good at nail art. You need to be trustworthy. You need to build a rapport with your clients so they know that when they sit down in your chair that you're not going to compromise the integrity of their hair. You have to have some kind of business sense. You need to be a self-promoter, poised and well-groomed, an effective communicator, and you need to stay up to date with technologies and procedures. So, back to the early history of cosmetology. Went over how they obtained their pigments, but some implements that they used are sharpened flints and oyster shells, bone, animal sinew. What's sinew, do you know? Like ligaments, tendons, and then strips of hide. So with the Egyptians, some things to know and take note of. Queen Nefertiti, she was around in 1400 BC. She is known for staining her nails red and doing eye makeup. If you think of like any Egyptians, or if you even think of like the Sphinx, how they're depicted, they have that really, really dark eyeliner. Queen Cleopatra, she was around in 50 BC. She stained her nails rust red, and she actually had her own personal cosmetics factory. They were the first people known to use cosmetics for beautification, religious ceremonies, and preparation of the deceased for burial, or like when they prepared their mummies and stuff. The Chinese, the Shang Dynasty, 1600 BC, they also stained their nails crimson or ebony, crimson red, and ebony black. The Chow Dynasty, 1100 BC, their royal families wore gold and silver nails. The Shang Dynasty, the Chinese aristocrats would rub a tin mixture of gum, Arabic, gelatin, beeswax, and egg whites onto their nails to stain them. And then throughout the Chow Dynasty, very long gold and silver nails were reserved for royal families. Commoners caught wearing royal colors were often sentenced to death. So the Greeks, this is known as the Golden Age, which is 500 BC. They developed elaborate, artful hairstyles. They used perfumes and cosmetics in religious rites. They're known for their bathhouses, so they built big, elaborate bathhouses. And then women wore white lead on their faces, coal on their eyes, and vermilion on their cheeks and lips. What color is coal?
Black.
And what color is vermilion?
Red.
Yep. Around this time, hairstyling became a highly developed art, and if you look in your book, there's a couple of examples of it. The red pigment, vermilion, was made by grinding cinnabar, which is a mineral that's the chief source of mercury. It was mixed with an ointment or dusted on the skin the same way as modern day cosmetics are used, like blush. The Romans also used fragrances in cosmetics. They used facials made of milk and bread or wine, corn, flour, or fresh butter. They mixed chalk and white lead for cosmetics, and women's hair color indicated their class in society. Noble women had red hair, middle class had blonde, and your poor women had black hair. They're known for developing methods for bleaching and dyeing hair, and again, hair color indicated your class. So, high class red hair, middle class blonde, and poor class women have black hair. European trends of the Middle Ages. So the Middle Ages is from 476 AD to 1450 AD. They wore towering headdresses with intricate hairstyles. They used cosmetics on their skin and hair. They colored their lips and cheeks, but not their eyes. So around this time, if you think back, like in art, this is when they had those real big dresses with the big, flared out real big, and they had their hair on top of their head, and they didn't wear any makeup, but they did color their cheeks and their lips. The Renaissance was the transition from medieval times to modern history. Men and women both wore elaborate, elegant clothing. They used fragrance and cosmetics. During this time, lips, cheeks, and eye coloring was discouraged, and they focused mainly on their clothing being elaborate, and they wore ornaments in their hair and headdresses. And the Renaissance is the period when Western civilization made the transition from medieval times to modern history. The Victorian Age. And every time I come across this, I'm always, I guess, surprised, but the Victorian Age is from 1837 to 1901. When you think about it, 1901 wasn't that long ago. So this was an austere and restrictive period, meaning that women didn't wear a lot of makeup, and what they did wear was very, very natural and minimal. They did sort of place importance on skincare. They made masks and packs made of honey, eggs, and milk, oatmeal, fruits, veggies, and other natural ingredients. And instead of wearing makeup, women pinched their cheeks and bit their lips for color. So the next one is our 20th century trends, and I'll put erasing. Put that up here. So during this time period is when you start having people inventing things, and you will recognize their last names because we still have a ton of stuff that's named after them that we still use today.
I do her toes. Oh, I see. Yeah, show her your toes.
Do French.
Little balls. Look good. And I'm gonna do the other side.
Who's
Harris.
Oh, Tara, you get your dogs there tomorrow
I think today.
or today? Okay, so in the 20th century, what became popular around the beginning of the 20th century that helped jumpstart all these advancements in cosmetology?
Pictures, motion pictures.
Motion pictures, so movies, yeah. Motion pictures allow viewers to see celebrities with flawless complexions, beautiful hairstyles, and manicured nails. The era of industrialization brought new prosperity, and all forms of beauty began to follow trends. So in 1906, Charles Nessler invented a heavily wired machine, and there's a picture of it in your all's book, that supplied electrical current to metal rods around hair, which strands were wrapped. They were kept away from the scalp and counterbalanced with weights. A name that we still hear today, Max Factor. He began manufacturing and selling makeup that wouldn't crack or cake under hot studio lights to movie stars. Madam C.J. Walker, what is the name of that movie that came out not long ago about her?
I don't know, but it's a good movie.
C.J. Walker moved her company, which manufactured Madam Walker's wonderful hair grower, to Indianapolis, where she built a factory, a hair salon, and a training school.
Self-made.
It's called Self-Made. In 1917, she organized a convention for the Madam C.J. Walker Hair Culturalist Union of America, which is one of the first national meetings for business women ever held. In 1917, buffing products and clear polish were invented and used. And then in the 1920s, Advertising grew from 2.5 million in 1915 to 25 million in 1925. The total sales for cosmetics and toiletries grew from 8.6 million in 1909 to 33.5 million in 1920. So in the 1930s, you have the first preheated perm method introduced, and Charles Revson introduced nail lacquer colors. And that name might sound a little bit familiar because that's where we get the company Revlon from. In 1940s, aerosol cans were invented. Shiny lips became popular. Nail polish applications omitted the lanula and sometimes even the nail tip. You know what your lanula is? It's that little white part at the end, or where your nail goes from. In 1950s, tube mascara was introduced. Weekly salon appointments boomed. Red nail lacquer was popular, and the decade eventually produced frosted pastel colors and hot oil manicures. Have you all seen what mascara looked like before it was made in a tube?
Oh, like in a tin?
Yeah, it looked like it was like a cake, and you got it wet and put it on your eyes. In 1960s, paper nail wraps were introduced. They protected nail tips. Detached natural nail tips were reaffixed using model airplane glue and strands of cotton. That turned into what we know as nail wraps today. And frosted nail shades and, let's see, more frosted nail shades and hot oil manicures continued to be popular. In the 1970s, monomer liquid and polymer powder nail services were introduced. Artificial nail tips were applied with cyanoacrylate adhesive. Jeff Pink invented the French manicure. Ridge filler was offered on the market, and square-shaped nails came into popularity, and the person who you can thank for that is Cher. In the 1980s, nail art with decals, jewels, metallic strips, and hand-drawn art became popular. Acrylic nails continued to improve. Then in the 1990s, day spas were born. Spray guns were used, airbrush to paint nails, as well as spray tans. And then creative nail design introduced the spa pedicure. So the 21st century, that's where we are today. Since the 20th century and now, we have more gentle, no fade hair color. We have estheticians like Tara that rejuvenate your skin and can treat different skin disorders. We've got a lot more day spas and even men-only specialty spas. And the 21st century is the age of specialization. So when you get your license, you can work at a dry bar, or you can be a blonding specialist, or Tara can be a vivid specialist. There's so many different niches that you can go in. So while we're on that, what are some career paths that you can go into as a licensed cosmetologist?
You can become an instructor.
An instructor.
Stylist. Nail tech.
instructor.
Stylist.
What was the next one?
Mentor.
Wax specialist. Ambassador, like a brand ambassador. You could specialize in extensions. What'd you say?
Blonde specialist.
Okay. A texture specialist. So, once you get your license, to go into these different career paths, you would need to get additional training. And that's just because to get your license, we touch on everything a little bit, but to become a specialist in something, you need to kind of get some further education in it. So another thing that you could specialize in is a texture specialist. As a texture specialist, you may be responsible for training other people in the salon to perform texture services, or work for a manufacturer where you'll be expected to train others on how to best perform texture services, according to your company's guideline and product instructions. And then a subspecialty of this is a curly hair specialist, and they specialize in maintaining natural curl. Okay, so like you could be a color or a blonding specialist, you can also be a cutting specialist. This position requires a dedicated interest in learning various cutting styles and techniques. After perfecting your own skills and developing your own method of cutting, everybody develops their own method. You may want to study other reputable hair cutters to learn and adapt to their systems. This type of training will allow you to perform top quality hair cutting in your own salon, as well as to coach those around you, helping them to hone their skills. A salon trainer. Many companies, many companies such as manufacturers and salon chains hire experienced salon professionals to train them to train others. This kind of training can take many forms, from technical training to management with interpersonal relationship training. A salon trainer can work with small salons as well as large organizations. So when I worked at Smart Style, every so often they would have somebody come in and do a class with us. And even here, like, we can reach out to people and have them come in and do classes. And that just helps keep everybody up to date on the newest trends, and newest techniques. A distributor. So as a distributor, you would work for a company and you would travel around to different salons and take their orders for them. The salon industry depends heavily on its relationships with product distributors in order to stay on top of what's occurring in the marketplace.
So what would you call like Wayne Tuttle?
He is
Is he a distributor or?
he's a cutting specialist. I think he still works with Hanzo Shears. So, for them, they hired him as a educator, I guess, and he would go around, with a shear salesperson and do classes to help sell the shears. So distributor sales consultants provide information about new products, trends, and new techniques. Also, when they come around, they'll let you know if there's any classes or anything going on. Another specialty that you can go into is a manufacturer's educator. Most manufacturers hire their own educators to train stylists and salon to understand that the company's hair care, hair color, and their chemical services are different from everybody else. Mastery of the company's product lines is a must for manufacturers. Educator. An accomplished educator who is a good public speaker can advance to field educator, regional educator, or even platform educator, and those are the people who are on stage at hair shows. Another thing that you can go into is you can become a cosmetology instructor. I did hair for 10 years before I got my instructor's license. And it says here, educating new cosmetologists can be very trying, but it can also be very rewarding. And I have days in here where I never want to come back, but most of the time it's pretty good. And then the last one, well, it's not the last one, but the last example that we have. You could be a film, theatrical, or editorial stylist.
There's also, you don't think about it a lot, but you could also do like mortuary work.
Yes. That, when I was in hair school, I was really interested in that.
Because that's a very hard time in people's lives, and when you can, it's very rewarding to be able to give them some comfort in that time, because it really makes a difference if the person that they go to see looks like the person that they remembered.
And in that, they even have special classes where, and I think I follow one of them on TikTok. Like the mortuary school has different mannequins, and they are based on real people who have had traumatic injuries, and they basically rebuild their face back. So film, theatrical, or editorial stylists, you can work on set for movies, TV shows, talk shows, things like that, or you could work for magazines as well, doing people's hair and makeup for their photo shoots and stuff. So some more, we've got inventory manager, where you keep track of all the inventory that's in a salon. A department head, if I worked at Ulta and I was over all the hairstyling products. Salon educator, special events manager, this could be for like weddings, proms, and things like that. Different types of managers in the salon, assistant or general manager, and then a salon owner. If business is your calling, you'll find that management opportunities in the salon and spa are really diverse. And you can be as specialized as just managing a team of people, doing their schedules and their production numbers, or you could be over like loss prevention, inventory, things like that, just depending on what kind and how big of a salon you go into.
And there's also, is it Universal?
Yeah.
Here, like in Abingdon, that does like,
Oh, okay.
but they do, like aesthetics, and they're a, what's the word I'm looking for? They're a factory, but they only hire like licensed professionals to like pick orders and put stuff together for their clients.